Stay
The wind
close.
did
Move
not
them to
howl
the
that
shelter.
night.
Good
It
dogs.
screamed.
Keep them together.
At minus
Almost
75
there.
degrees, the air itself felt alive, sharp enough to cut through skin and bone. Snow moved sideways across the frozen valley,
back, beast!
swallowing tracks, sound,
dog. Keep
and
'em back.
sometimes even hope. Out here, nothing survived for long without strength or loyalty. And on that night, surrounded by endless white and rising darkness, an old grandpa stood between his flock and the wild. He was not a hero, just a man who refused to leave what depended on him. His small clay hut
Easy
stood
now,
half
stay
buried
back!
in snow, built
I
by
said
his own
back!
hands many winters ago. The roof was low, the walls thick, designed to trap heat and resist storms that could last for days. Inside, a weak fire burned slowly, feeding on the last dry wood he had gathered before the blizzard arrived. Beside the door lay his companion, a massive black Tibetan Mastiff, silent, watchful, the kind of dog that did not bark without reason. The old man called him Cora. Cora lifted his head before the wind changed. Animals always knew first. His ears twitched, his body stiffened, and a low growl rolled deep from his chest. The grandpa paused. He listened. At first there was nothing but wind. Then, distant movement, soft, careful, too organized to be random. Wolves. The old man stepped outside, pulling his heavy coat tighter around him. Snow hit his face like needles. The sheep were restless inside the enclosure, pressing together for warmth. Fear moved through them like a silent wave. He had seen this before. Blizzards drove predators closer to humans. Hunger erased fear. Far beyond the firelight, shadows moved, eyes reflected in the darkness. One pair, then another, then many more. The wolves had found them. The grandpa did not panic. Panic wasted energy, and energy meant survival. Instead, he walked slowly around the enclosure, checking the fire line he had built earlier, a rough circle of burning straw and wood meant to keep predators at distance. Flames danced in the wind, struggling but alive. Cora stood beside him, unmoving, staring into the storm. The wolves waited. They were patient hunters. They knew cold weakened everything. They knew storms made mistakes happen. Inside the hut, the old man melted snow for water, his hands steady despite the shaking cold. He brewed tea, not for comfort, but for warmth that lasted longer inside the body. Every movement was slow, practiced, efficient. Outside, the howling began. Not loud, not chaotic. A signal. The pack was closing in. Hours passed. The storm grew stronger. The fire line shrank as snow swallowed parts of it. The grandpa stepped out again, feeding the flames, fighting the wind with tired arms. That was when Cora barked, not at the wolves, at something else. From the far side of the valley, a massive shape moved through the snow, heavy, slow, unafraid, a bear. In summer, the old man might have feared it. But winter changed rules. The bear looked thin, desperate, driven by hunger, just like the wolves. For a moment, everything stopped. Wolves on one side, bear on the other, sheep trembling in the middle, and one old man standing between them all. The bear approached the fire line, sniffing the air. The wolves kept their distance now, uncertain. Even predators respected larger danger. Cora stepped forward, fur rising, teeth exposed. The grandpa placed a hand gently on his head. "No," he whispered. Fighting everything meant losing everything. The bear circled once, watching. The fire cracked loudly, sparks flying into the storm. Heat, smoke, and human presence confused the moment. Finally, the bear moved away from the flames and settled at a distance, too tired to fight, too hungry to leave. For the first time that night, the wolves hesitated. The storm worsened. Snow buried half the enclosure. The grandpa worked without rest, clearing paths so the sheep would not suffocate. His breath froze in the air, his hands lost feeling hours ago, but stopping was not an option. Cora never left his side. Near midnight, the wolves tried again. They rushed the weakest side of the fire line, testing it. One jumped forward, then another. Flames scattered under the wind. The sheep panicked, pushing against each other. The grandpa grabbed a burning branch and stepped forward, shouting into the storm. His voice was small against the wind, but his movement was enough. Cora charged beside him, barking fiercely. The wolves backed away, not defeated, just waiting for another chance. Time moved slowly after that. The old man's strength faded. Every step felt heavier. The cold crept deeper into his bones. He sat for a moment near the fire, closing his eyes just to rest. Cora nudged him awake. Sleeping in that cold meant never waking again. The bear still lingered in the distance, watching silently. Strange as it seemed, its presence kept the wolves cautious. Nature had created an uneasy balance, predators holding each other back, and in the center, survival. Before dawn, the storm finally began to weaken. The wind slowed, the sky turned from black to deep gray. Shapes became clearer. The wolves, exhausted and hungry, slowly retreated into the hills. The opportunity had passed. The bear stood, looked once toward the enclosure, and disappeared into the white silence. The valley became quiet again. The grandpa leaned against the fence, breathing heavily. Cora sat beside him, calm now, as if the night had been just another test. The sheep were safe. The fire burned low, but it had lasted long enough. When the first sunlight broke through the clouds, it touched the frozen land with soft gold. The storm was over. Tracks of wolves circled the enclosure, proof of how close danger had come. The old man looked across the valley, tired but peaceful. Out here, survival was never about winning. It was about enduring. One more night. He poured the last of his tea, steam rising into the cold morning air. Cora rested his head on the old man's knee. No words were needed. They both knew. Winter would return again. The wolves would return again. But as long as fire burned, as long as loyalty stood beside him, and as long as he could still rise when the storm came, he would stay, because some places are not protected by strength alone. They are protected by patience, courage, and the quiet promise never to abandon what depends on you. And in the endless white silence of the frozen valley, that promise survived the storm.